Man, this game is fun. Just wish I could come up with some ideas for videos though, because I gotta make those. And maybe tomorrow. Man, this game is fun. Duh! This game's eating so much of my time that I can't write lists! Ugh. You know what? Screw it. I'll just write a list about this game.
Ah yes, Team Fortress 2. I can't think of any other video game that's eaten away at so much of my free time. Everyone's already talked about this game an absurd amount, about the classes, about the weapons, about the community, but now I think I'm gonna talk about the maps. The only real rule to this list is that I'm only looking at official maps, and yes, that includes the beta maps. So as much as I'd love to put Mario Kart on the list, I can't. So with that one rule being established, grab your guns because the list starts now.
Those of you familiar with the game may find number 10 to be an obvious choice, but whatever. Number 10 on this list is Dust Bowl.
When TF2 was first released, there were only 6 maps, Dust Bowl being one of them. And while this isn't my favorite launch map, it's among the best, and certainly among my favorite attack-defense maps. The open feel of the map creates many possibilities to exploit each class in various ways. And while that's certainly true for most of TF2's maps, Dust Bowl is one of the best examples there is. And while this map's been around since the beginning, there's a whole bunch of great strategies to be tried out, new updates and items notwithstanding. Dust Bowl. It was here from the start, and it's still a super fun map. Most of the maps in this game use the same common environments, you know, deserts, alpine, warehouses. Well, how about a big city? To be honest with you, urban-themed maps are something that I'd like to see a lot more often in this game. But a unique setting alone can't make a map good, so thankfully Kong King is covered in that department. True to its urban theme, it's a lot more expansive than most other King of the Hill maps. And as a result, this also adds another layer of strategy to it. There are a lot more different ways to sneak up, rush, spawn camp, and what have you. This is a map that embodies one of my favorite things about TF2. Busy and chaotic gameplay. Before you ask, yeah, you're gonna be seeing that point a lot in this video. I'm pretty sure that when Payload was first introduced to TF2, it seemed like some kind of weird alternate take on attack defense. However, it very much is an entity unto its own, and the average Payload map's about as fun as the average attack defense map, if not more so. While working on this list, I was trying to decide between two very similar Payload maps, Upward and Frontier. And after a bit of debating with myself, in the end I settled on Frontier. A really important thing to note about this map is that instead of pushing a bomb cart, you're riding a demon train. At first that may not seem like much of a big change, but...
Yes, I like this new weapon.
For those of you who are more interested in ambushing, well, this map's covered in that department too. There's nothing quite like sneaking under Red's feet on this map and then blowing them to pieces. So yeah, Frontier. Well-covered map in every department. One of my favorite modes in this game is Capture the Flag, or rather, Capture the Briefcase full of important documents. And while the consensus is that 2 Fort is the best map in this mode, I'd have to agree. Yeah, I know, this is another predictable choice, but can you really blame me? Frankly, this is one of the most fun takes on Capture the Flag that I've ever seen in a video game. So I'm sure one question you're probably thinking right now is, why is 2 Fort on the list rather than all the other CTF maps? Because I think it's more fun than the rest. To be specific, it doesn't feel too expansive, but it doesn't feel too confined either, which is very hard to do on these maps. This was the map that set the standard for the Capture the Flag mode, and while most of the other maps in that category have been able to keep up, they haven't been able to surpass it entirely. That being said though, this isn't my favorite out of the original maps. For that, join me at the next segment. So anyway, my favorite original map is the one that's the most unique. Yeah, you should probably expect me to say that a lot on this list. With that established, Hydro. Ever since TF2 was first released, there has never been another territorial control map. Reason being, it's a very difficult mode to make maps for. It's just like Control Points mode, however, there are multiple areas to take over, and each of those areas has only one control point for each side. But when one team has only one area remaining, that's when it takes a twist. The owners of the last point have to keep it from getting captured for a specific amount of time, attack-defense style. It may be a bit confusing, but man is it fun! The only other thing I really have left to say about this map is please, Valve, bring this mode back! Now, there's a specific part about the criteria of the list that I may or may not have cleared up. I'm allowing the beta maps. They may not be 100% complete yet, but they're still some of the most fun that I've ever had playing this game. Not to mention, if Valve screws up somewhere down the line with these maps, this could show where they went wrong. Anyway, back to the topic at hand, number 5, Cactus Canyon. At first it may seem like a standard multi-leveled payload map, and it is. And then we get to the second half of the map, which throws the tradition clean out the window. The cart's trajectory goes in a circle until it reaches the end of the track, where you wait for it to get run over by a train. This is by far my favorite payload map, combining a unique second half, fun gameplay, and a setup like something out of a James Bond film. And all this coming from a map that isn't even 100% finished at the time of this recording. I think I've established at this point in the list what makes a map truly great to me. Specifically, that would be a unique setup and chaotic gameplay. And while number 4 may not be that much of the former, it definitely qualifies for the latter. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hightower. Now on the surface, it's not really that different from all the other payload race maps. The only difference is that this map has one section, whereas the others have 3. But let me tell you, in that one section, chaos reigns. TF2 is always a hectic game, but this map characterizes that more than any other. Due to it being such a small map, the conflict is often brought to you, and you will get beat down if you don't pay enough attention. I should also point out that this map was also reskinned for the 2013 Halloween event into Hell Tower, which is by far my favorite Halloween map. Pushing a corpse instead of a bomb cart, magic spells ready to be used, and a visit to the very depths of hell itself. So in short, none of the other payload maps have even come close to topping Hightower, and it looks like it's gonna stay that way for a while. A unique setup is extremely important to me in TF2 map making, and as such, the top 3 on this list are practically defined by that notion. I mean, there's only so many times that you can do another take on Granary or Gold Rush before it starts to get redundant. Or on the other hand, you could do something different like with Stand-In. This map, rather than the traditional control points setup of having 5 points with a set order, instead has 3 points that can be capped in any order. This creates an absurd amount of possible strategies. Does the whole team gun for 1 point, or do you split up equally? Which point do you place all your resources in defending? What do you do when the opposing team is capping your last point faster than you're capping one of theirs? Well, not much, I can tell you that. This is a map that really puts the team in Team Fortress 2. It's a map that requires you to be able to counteract anything that the opposing team might try to do. And I know I'm probably beating a dead horse by now, but more maps need to break the status quo. And thankfully, we're getting more maps that are doing just that. Steel, to put it lightly, is not a map suited for beginners. It's probably the most complex TF2 map that I can think of off the top of my head, and I can guarantee that you will get lost the first couple of times you play it. But when you do finally get used to how this map works, then holy shit is it fun. The premise is that there's a central control point that's extremely difficult to capture, but there are two ways of going about this if you're on blue. The first is that you could pick a class that can super jump and hope that you dodge any incoming fire long enough to cap the point. The second, and much more common method, is that you could cap the 4 points before it so that you have a better shot at capping the central point. Because of the absurd amount of options presented, the map never, and I mean never, gets old. Not to mention, the complex nature of the map means that your team is going to have to cooperate a lot. The only reason why this map isn't number 1 is because if you're on red, it's not as fun most of the time. Number 1, on the other hand...
Number 1 on this list is the other beta map that I was talking about. And yeah, I know it's not necessarily finished as of this recording, but that doesn't really matter. It's still the best TF2 map I've ever played. So you know what? I'm not going to draw this out any longer. My pick for the all-time best Team Fortress 2 map is Asteroid.
Now this was not one of those occasions where I was dead set sure on what would be number 1. When I was coming up with the list, it was either this or Steel. Both maps have a unique setup, expand upon established objectives, and are just generally fun maps. But like I mentioned earlier, Steel is a map that's less fun if you're on red, whereas Asteroid is always fun no matter what team you're on. Anywho, the premise is that you have to destroy robots that are in the enemy team's base and collect the power cores that they leave behind. On the surface, it may sound kind of mundane, but there's a twist. You can break into a room in the enemy team's base and steal the cores that they've collected. And there's no limit to how many you can steal. What this means is that if your team isn't prepared, the game will turn against you in a heartbeat. And I gotta say, the feeling of that occasion when you do nab 100, 200, or possibly even more cores than that, that's one of the most satisfying things you can ever do in a video game. This is the map that has it all, a unique objective, fun gameplay, mandatory teamwork, and a frenetic pace. And it is without a doubt my pick for the all-time best map in Team Fortress 2.
And as a final note directed at Valve, I'm counting on you guys to have the finished version be just as good, if not better. I mean, I'm sure you'll find a way. Nothing else to say other than the spirit of vengeance, and I'll see y'all later. Yeah, I know it's not necessarily finished as of this recording, but that doesn't really matter. It's still the best TS2 map? What the hell does that even mean?